All righty, Coach. Welcome to the Views from the Schott podcast. I know it's been a minute, and this is what you want to do on a Monday morning. Over anything else, I'm sure, is talk on a podcast. But we had you on last year. The conversation a lot was you're entering year one, and a lot of new stuff is going on and all that, right? So I just want to kind of reset. How is life different today toward the end of September compared to 365 days ago when you're entering year one as a head coach at Ohio State?
Well, it's very different, and I think when you look at how we constructed the roster and approached that, we were able to do it differently because we had our staff in place, and we started with retention. So there's a lot of familiar people around, players, coaches. I went through, going through that last year certainly helped me a great deal, and helped me understand some things that I felt we did really well, helped me recognize some things we needed to do differently. And we were able to have the time and I think just runway to approach this off season a little bit different, which has made a big difference. But it starts with the people, having so many familiar faces around, going from year one to year two was important, and excited about where we're at today.
Yeah, so you only had to make one change on the coaching staff. You bring in Brian Walsh from Indiana. So, in terms of maybe the comfortability of not just the returning staff, but also returning Bruce, returning Devin, returning Tayson, for example, who obviously didn't get to play last year, but he's still with the program. You return a lot of real production and also some guys who have been with the team for a couple of years now. So, take me through maybe as you've thought through as we construct the team through the portal this year. What'd you learn from last year? What tweaks have you made in that regard, especially with the fact that you get to do this for a second time with basically the same coaching staff?
Well, I think it's important to note that, we were all together as a staff while we were building this roster. Last year, it was, we were adding guys on staff while we were adding players, and really, so it was a much more collaborative effort this spring in constructing this roster. But, we wanted to start with retention. Obviously, that's headlined by Bruce, Junie, and Devin. It was priority number one to bring those three guys back. Then, priority number two was to bring back some of our developmental guys who we really believe in, are excited about, the progression they made from the start of summer last year through the end of the season. And Yvonne, Colin, Tayson, those three guys kind of headline that, and we've been really pleased with all three of them. And bringing Braylon back was important because he does a lot behind the scenes, and he's gotten better, and that's just going to help make us better. Then, from there, it was figuring out how to add the right pieces to what we had. But make no mistake, having our staff together was a big deal. And I think it helped us as we evaluated guys that we wanted to add. We were able to kind of dig deeper into who they are and how they really fit. And then this year we targeted size, high basketball IQ, experience. Those two things kind of go together sometimes, and but that size and was important for us, and getting some proven production at the college level was important for us. So, learn from some of the things we did the year before heading into this off season, and I'm really excited about this group.
Yeah, it was a clear pivot, clear just change in direction in terms of approach to the portal from last year to this year, which I think excites a lot of fans. When you look at last year, obviously it doesn't end the way you want, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but there is also some good to look at from last year as well. So is there, it doesn't even necessarily need to be a game, but a breakthrough, someone develops a performance, anything like that, that you look back at last year, maybe even in practice or something like that, where you look back and you say, man, I'm really proud of what we're able to do here last season.
Well, the standard is the standard. I think that even though it was year one, and I was I still am very vocal about what I think that standard is as far as competing for championships and deep tournament runs. That's what the peak of this program has been throughout decades and decades and decades of history. So, you know, that standard will never change. We had to establish some things certainly, in year one, and there's factors now that are different, right? NIL plays a huge factor in roster construction, and I think we're constantly fighting to keep raising our level in that regard, and we have, which has been great. But I think for me, it was really important that we constructed this roster in a way that allowed us to play, fully the way we want to play. But I'm proud of the way we pivoted with all the different roster adversity we faced last year, and it was a ton. Whether it was sometimes game to game, and guys being injured or sick, or obviously missing players for extended periods of time. So proud of the way we overcame that adversity and positioned ourselves to really have a chance to get to the postseason. Now, certainly we fell short. There's no excuses, but when you say, okay, you faced all that adversity, how were you in that position? Well, I think the one thing we did really well was, we were able to establish our culture, lay a foundation that we've built upon at an even higher level now, because of who we have coming back and who we brought in. So there were some good things, but listen, we had to adjust going into the season the way we wanted to play, and how we had to adjust during the season to maximize kind of who we were last year. It wasn't exactly, who we wanted to be, but we had to make some adjustments to try and be as good as we possibly could last year. But our guys fought 11 games decided by 2 possessions or less. Ton of experience in that, certainly for all our returners and me included. So our fight, our togetherness, the culture, all that stuff was good. It's going to be even better this year. It already is, but really excited, about how those experiences we had last year will help us here moving forward.
You mentioned a lot of really close games last year, especially in Big Ten play. So, is there a game that you look back on specifically and say, man, like, we should, it felt like we won that game. Like, if you wouldn't have been counting the points scored by each team and you just played a 40-minute game, I would have assumed that we won that game. Is there a game that you wish you could go back to last year and say, man, like, I think we should have won this game, or it feels like we won that game? Because it feels like maybe one went away from going to the NCAA tournament. So anything like that come to mind?
Well, I think there were multiple. I think Oregon and Indiana at home, come to mind. Like we got to do a better job of closing those games out, and closing them out earlier in the game. So some of that was, some self inflicted wounds, and certainly not to take away from what those teams did and some of the big shots their players hit. But we had some self inflicted wounds, and I think that's where you see some of our lack of experience last year really show up in those moments where it's a simple miscommunication maybe, or a guy doesn't execute his job at a high level that probably if he has a little bit more experience he does. So there were little things like that. Those games stand out for sure. I think Pittsburgh at home stands out for sure. Us fouling shooters multiple times, and things that we worked on every single day, that those were frustrating losses, and all at home. I think, which is another part of it, because we proved throughout the course of the year that we could not only battle tough on the road, but we could win on the road. But we got to protect our home court better. Certainly mindful of that, and those three stand out for sure.
So you said you proved you can win on the road. I you don't listen to the show. You should never listen to the show. But going into that Purdue game, I don't remember the game before, but I was like, I don't see how Ohio State wins this game. You're going to Purdue. That's a hard place to win, right? And then you proved why I sit here and talk in front of a mic, and you make good money coaching a ball team, right? Is that Purdue win your favorite of the year? Or as you look back on a game where you're like, man, like that one was cool, which one do you look back on the most?
Well, I think that game is really important because the character and just the culture, the toughness that we want to be about as a team really was on display. And we want our program to be represented like that all the time. Certainly, it doesn't necessarily always result in a win, but when you look at that game in what is one of the absolute best environments in the entire country against a really good team, we go in, they go up, we come out second half, like, and we eventually take the lead, they respond and retake the lead, and then we respond again. And I think our collective toughness. Certainly, we had some guys step up, make some big individual plays, but our collective toughness was on full display that game. And I think sometimes we may not have always made those shots there down the stretch to get us to win, but I felt like all but maybe just a couple games, we had that collective toughness and fight. And home, road, like in this league, you got to have it every single night. And I feel like we did that for almost every game last year.
So I think back to conversations, I guess, this summer with Coach Justice, Coach Simons, Q Banks. They've all kind of explained how we're doing things differently this year. And I'm not here to be a sunshine pumper. However, I have said, if you think about anyone in their day to day, in your real world job, if you look at day 0 compared to day 365, there is so much growth from the first year in your occupation. This isn't the first year in your occupation, but you went year 1 as a head coach. And I assume, given you're a human like everyone else, there's probably a lot of growth from year 1 to year 2 that you can take. And that's what gets me really excited about this upcoming season. So as you evaluate your own self as coach of Ohio State, where do you feel like maybe you've improved or you've learned a lot? And it may just be experience, which is a large part of it. But where do you feel like, man, I'm much more prepared maybe for this heading in to next season?
Well, I think experience is a great teacher. And there wasn't a single time we went into a game or practice where we weren't prepared. The way we work in this program, and certainly I have to be the leader in that regard, is I'll put our work ethic and the time spent up against anybody in the country. And that's where it has to start. Now, what I learned as the season went on, and certainly have done an even better job this off season, is how to trust this unbelievable group of people that I've surrounded myself with, and how to utilize their strengths better. As I've sat back and evaluated how they work, because it was my first year, certainly, but our first year together. And so we were all still learning each other a little bit, and those guys were learning me, I was learning them. But the one thing I appreciate about every single person on our staff is like they worked really, really, really hard. And we pour a lot of time into our players. And so me learning how to kind of delegate was something I had to get better at quickly. And I found out the hard way there early in the season. So much better at that. Much better at I think being able to manage everything that goes into running a program at this level. Certainly excited about where we are, and I think everything's kind of clicking on all cylinders right now. That's the difference. You know, Year one, you're still figuring each other out a little bit. Year two, retention was so critical, players and staff. Now we're rolling. We all know each other. We know each other's strengths, and we work really well together. The way the staff collaborates has been really impressive. It's really the best staff I've ever seen, that I've experienced, really work together and collaborate. And so that's going to bode well for us. But in-game experience, certainly, like the amount of close games we had, all that stuff was valuable. And I think in coaching, you continue to get better and better throughout your career at that stuff. But you know, at the end of the day, biggest thing for us is I want our guys to be comfortable, and I want them to be aggressive in those end of game moments, because we've practiced them, because they've had experience. So all of us got a lot of good experience last year in that regard, and we'll be ready, I think, to learn from the mistakes made at those times and capitalize this year.
So you mentioned kind of more trust delegating to those on your coaching staff. Are you able to give a peek behind the curtains and just are there any examples you think of where you'd say, man, like this time last year, I maybe wouldn't have given this away. Now I like either that coach has proven it or I've realized like they're really good at it and I just need to let that go. Like, are any examples of that where you have delegated going into this year?
Well, I think when whether it's scouting, whether it's player development, it was very much I wanted to be there every single day and be leading every single time. So I think carving out paths to allow guys on our staff to utilize their strengths and experience was really important. And ultimately, we got a staff full of guys who are eventually going to be head coaches because they're really, really good. And so part of them having a pathway to develop, like I've been given throughout my career, was important. And so figuring out how to balance all that, but still, like I can't just give things completely up, right? But you can create a pathway for guys to utilize their strengths. That's why they were hired, and I'm doing that much better. But it really permeates throughout all areas. But we meet regularly, and we got guys with strong voices and experiences, and I'm certainly leaning on those as it comes time to make decisions.
So, as an Ohio guy, I've pounded the table that a lot of the characteristics that you have, they fit the mold for the Ohio State University basketball coach specifically. And you said the standard is a standard. You get that. So, how do you gauge whether you're at 50% or 90% of where you want this program to be at the large scale of, like you said, competing for NCAA championships, Big Ten championships? How do you gauge that?
Yeah, I don't know if you can put a percentage on it because we're trying to get there, and we're trying to get there certainly as quick as we can. But I think the landscape of college basketball has changed so much just in the last 3 years, and the pathway there is different. It's different. You're not at a There isn't a level playing field across college basketball right now. And there's a reality to that. So wherever you are, really for any program, wherever you are in that playing field, you got to find a way to maximize your group. I think we're doing that at a really high level right now. I think last year we went into the season, attempted to do it a certain way, didn't quite maximize maybe what we could have. Now, really confident that we are, and I think we just now have to go out and we got to execute. And that's really, we want to be a team, and we want to represent our former players in this program with great toughness and togetherness. That's what like that's what Ohio State basketball is. When you look throughout the history of the program, it's teams that you know certainly there have been some extremely decorated and talented players come through here, but when you go back to like the last Final Four team, just how together that team was, there was a toughness to that team. You go back before that, and the Big Ten championship teams, there's always been a togetherness and a toughness. So we took a huge step forward in our program last year in those two areas. We didn't arrive yet. I think we've taken even another big step forward in those two areas, and I'm excited for that to kind of be put on display come game day, and well, even this weekend, right? This when we're practicing. So all of that stuff is important, but to me, it's more than it's when you're in this seat and you represent Ohio State basketball and its tradition and the basketball tradition throughout the state of Ohio. You have a responsibility to to everybody to just operate with high level toughness, and that's what that's like in the core of Ohio. The
Yeah.
entire state in all areas is a level of toughness and just kind of fight and grit, and that's how we operate every day, and that's how we want to play as well.
So I want to transition to recruiting now. Obviously, a lot of visits this time of year on the high school side. Take me through your preference, and I'm going to make you choose one. You may not have one, but you're going to have to today. Would you rather have like your favorite prospect? I don't care who it is, whoever comes to mind. Would you rather have the first visit or the middle visit or the last visit with that guy? What's your preference there?
I think you need to be towards the end now, with the way that things have gone the last 2 3 years in recruiting. Kids are their processes are longer than they used to be. NIL is a big factor for that. Being able to go see multiple schools and hear multiple opportunities seems to be where the landscape has shifted. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think you certainly want to be strategic. And for us, a lot goes into it. I love having recruits here for football games. I think it's the best representation of the power, passion, Buckeye Nation and the network that exists for our players beyond their basketball careers. So it's certainly, don't want to overgeneralize it, because you get there's strategy to where you can position yourself best you can, and sometimes being early is the right play. But I think if you wanted to really lump it into a theme overall, I would say being in kind of the back half of their visits or the end is probably most valuable.
So as you're planning these visits, is this like we've found the formula and it's pretty much the same I guess schedule, I guess I would say, for each prospect? Do you change kind of what you're doing based on, what we think the player and the family is interested in, or how do you go about planning a visit for a specific player?
Yeah, I think there's a excuse me, there's a framework, for visits that exists, and there's definitely some similarities, but we really try to do our homework and research to understand what's important to our guests, and then also making sure at the same time we're highlighting all the incredible things that Ohio State has to offer academically, Columbus included in that. There's a lot. Like, we could have great visits, honestly, for 3-4 days. There's so much Ohio State has to offer, and so much Columbus has to offer. We have to find a way to condense that, obviously. But understanding what's really important to them certainly plays a factor in mapping out that itinerary. But there's a framework that exists this time of year on football. Like a football weekend, for example. There's we're going to go to the skull session because it's awesome, and we're gonna tailgate and get to meet, because we'll have former players pop by the tailgate this year, and get a chance to talk to guys. So it's we utilize a consistent framework, but certainly leave room to adjust for guys specifically.
So, as you in your entire role as head coach at Ohio State, whether it be, man, we put together an airtight game plan. I cannot wait to go out there and show that off, or planning visits, or maybe it's just the fact that you have some of the best seats in the house for any Ohio State football game you ever want to go to. Like, what's the greatest, maybe not perk, but what fires you up the most about being head coach for Ohio State?
Man, it's really in this. It's hard to pinpoint, I think, one specific area, but the one thing for me is, you know, I, every single day when I wake up and I have an opportunity to walk through the doors of the Schott, like I don't take a single day for granted. There hasn't been a day go by, as long as some of the days are, as hard as some of them are. You know, there isn't a single day that's gone by where I have not walked in this building with joy, with just hunger and fight to help get this program back to where it belongs. We when we took over, we had a lot of work to do, and I think we've made some strides, but we're not there yet, and I know that, and that drives me, every single day when I wake up, all the way to when I go to bed, and it consumes me. So there's really hard, whether it's, and I'm hands on in all areas: recruiting, player development, what's going on in our facilities, like all of it, and we are constantly trying to push the envelope, take it up another level. How can we raise our level in every area of our program, even if it's just a little bit? We're trying to find ways to raise our level, and I think we've done that in a lot of areas. Again, we still got some room to grow, but that's how my mind works. It just never stops. I'm constantly thinking about how can we raise our level throughout every area in our program, and how can we serve our players. Like, those two things are what consume me, and most importantly, how we can serve our players to be the absolute best players and men they can be.
So you mentioned this never stops, right? And thanks to social media, we can say whatever we want about any person or place or thing or team. And then we just kind of go to bed, we wake up, we go on with our lives, right? Like, that's just how this works. It never stops for you. So imagine this. I don't think I've asked this question to you before, but I find the most just loud, probably obnoxious and also angry fan in the Ohio State fan base who just maybe they want Ohio State to be really great. Maybe they just want to be mad about everything and they're vocal about it. So I say, hey, man, like, you really want to talk about Ohio State, right? Like, you want to platform this. And he says, yeah, absolutely. I believe very passionately in this. And I say, okay, trust me, I'm going to blindfold you. Okay. I blindfold this young man and I plop him in a seat right across from you. And I say, all right, man, go for it. You want to talk? Go ahead. He gives his spiel. What does Coach Diebler respond with?
I think we have not only the biggest fan base in the country, which has been well documented with our over 11 million fans. I think we have the most passionate fan base in the country. And listen, I love it. I love it. And I understand, again, people had told, well, coach, maybe, you shouldn't set high expectations starting out, or you should kind of ease in. And I said, listen, this is national media people telling me this or whoever. And I said, I will never apologize for, what I think the standard of this program should be. And it's probably, you know, I hold it even higher than probably 99% of the people out there. So I'll never get upset for people who are showing their passion for our program. I understand at times there's negativity involved in that, but out of our 11 million fans, most all of them are positive and want us to do well and support us, and we're thankful for that. Like there's no question about it. But I think you know social media is it's changed the game, and it's created an accessibility to players, to coaches. But at the end of the day, like I know Ryan said it, Coach Dave, pressure is a privilege. And trust me, there is no amount of pressure that anybody can put on me more than I put on myself. There's none. So what we're trying to do and where we're going, we're super excited about it. And listen, we'll change some minds across, you know, uh, during the journey. I think certainly, but I love the passion and power and size and influence of Buckeye Nation, and super excited, about I think really the support and the buzz around this team. And I think honestly, there should be even more because we got a good team, and I can't wait to see how that comes to fruition this year.
So you mentioned you got a good team. I haven't asked much about this year's team, which maybe is not something that you prefer. But honestly, like, whole point of this is let's get to learn the human Jake Diebler and everyone else who's been on the show more than anything else. But let's talk about this upcoming year's team. Like, this roster, based on the way you like to coach and play, it seems like there's a really good fit. So take me through overall. What's your expectation? What have you seen in practice? Like, tell me about Ohio State men's basketball 2025.
Yeah, well, when you look at our team last year, there were some, we did some things really well. We had, I think, a top 30 offense in the country. We scored more points per game than Ohio State scored in a really long time. There was a lot of positives, right, within kind of the context of the season. There were also some glaring areas we had to get better at. And for me, number one was rebounding. Like, we had to address on both sides of the ball our rebounding. We did that in recruiting. We got bigger. We're going to play bigger. Shifting Devin to a wing for majority of his minutes was part of helping us rebound, helping us be bigger. And he's done a great job for us this offseason. I'm really excited, for people to get a chance to see all the hard work he's put in. So that was part of it. Another part for us was, our assist rate was low last year, and we played faster than Ohio State had played, I think, in 9 or 10 years or something like that. But I wanted to play even faster. As the season went on, we had to kind of slow down because we had to call more sets because we struggled to play with a lot of freedom and react. So now with this group, I think we have a group that's built to play in more concepts, less set heavy. We'll still run some sets and call some sets to get guys the ball in certain spots, but we've really worked hard on learning how to play off of each other, playing in different concepts and short-sided games, and our assist rate has been extremely high. So we've so far in practice going against ourselves addressed two areas that were a concern for us. And then the other one was fouling. We fouled way too much. We sent teams to the free throw line way too much. They were costly, certainly end of games. They were costly late in games, costly in the first half. Our free throw rate was too bad. So, we've part of that, I think, comes with experience and a higher basketball IQ, because some of our fouls last year were because we were a step slow to position and then we were out of position, and so we fouled. Or some of it was a size issue. So we feel like we've addressed those three areas. All the analytics of our off season so far and our practice would indicate that we've made significant strides in those areas. Now, obviously, we got to take them over to games as we get better with those leading up to November. So all that to be said, I'm super excited about this team. Like really, really excited about this team. It's very connected. The chemistry is high level. Even I thought we had some really good chemistry, which helped us stay together. It's even better. Even better. The closeness on the team, the way guys are playing, the chemistry on the court is significantly ahead of schedule. And listen, last year we didn't get to play 5-on-5 much. Really, we didn't play 5-on-5 until September. We've competed all summer. We've been healthy. We've had guys available. We've so that matters. I just feel like as far as where we are today versus where we were this time last year, we're so much further ahead, which will be important. So we'll be able to play with more pace, like we tried to play with last year at the beginning of the season. And I think those areas, those deficiencies we had last year, we feel like we've really addressed those, and I'm excited for that to again come to fruition when we start games.
Super exciting, Coach. There's a basketball above, I believe, your right shoulder, unless it's mirrored, then be your left. Take me through the story of that basketball. And it looks like you got three other openings for a basketball. So what are those slots for?
So yeah, that was there's a few basketballs there. Certainly, some couple of those were when I had to fill in a few years ago, and then first official win after I'd been hired, Cornell, and then the last one there was the first win against Texas out in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So those were gifts. It's got these little things up there, so I figure we might as well try and fill them a little bit. But
Yeah.
hopefully we can get a Big Ten championship ball up there and get some things like that as we build this out. And again, I think little things like that. I'm motivated by like those empty spots, and I'm motivated by some of the dust on the trophies around here. Like all that stuff to me is just like it just constantly motivates me.
Alrighty, Coach. Couple of weirder questions here. First of all, this one's still basketball related. You are king of the world now, and as part of that responsibility, you can change any rule to college basketball. What's one rule change you would make?
Well, the first rule would be, setting in stone some things so we actually know what next year looks like. That's the hardest part about college basketball right now. Is we're like seem to be the only, really, I guess you could say college sports to some degree, but we seem to
Yep.
be the only entity, the only industry who can't fully plan ahead because we don't exactly know what the rules are, what next year looks like. And that's the hardest part to me is not the portal, it's not NIL, it's the unknown
Mm-hmm.
and not being able to accurately plan ahead because of the uncertainty. So I'd change that from day one. How I would do it, is I think I'd find a way to move to a sports specific cap in NIL. I think a place like Ohio State, when you have again our passionate and supportive fan base and the resources we have, the brand, all of that stuff, we should be able to utilize that weight across the board. So that would be an area for me for sure. I think we're going to see this fifth year thing go through. We'll see. There's no way to know, but I think again some sort of consistency, ironing out the details, so we most importantly know how to operate moving forward is big. I'm a fan of more games. I think we have a long season, so being able to have even a couple more games, we're going to add one next year. Even being able to have a couple more would be great. And so there's little things I think we can do to help make the game better. I like the coaches challenge that's coming up. and the continuation that's going to be coming up. Like those are little things that are going to help our game, help speed it up, less review at the end of games. So we're inching along, which is good. But the most important thing right now is we got to get we should know by now what next year is going to look like, and not knowing that is making it really hard to plan out.
I could have you unpack that for the next 2 hours. We don't have the time. That's fine, but I love the answer. This one I've asked a couple players and coaches. I'm gonna put you on the spot here, okay? Uh, 6 months, 7, 8, 9, 8 months from now, you've won a national title. Okay, like the clock is zero. Ohio State national champions, 2026. The only caveat is for the next 30 minutes, you must just insult your opposing coach, the players, their families. Like the minute the clock hits zero, from the mic is put in front of you, you got to insult everyone for 30 minutes. You keep your title, and that's fine. Is it worth it? Would you do it?
So you become public enemy number one after that. Is that what?
I mean, you could maybe gracefully insult people. I don't know. Like that's up to you. But
I mean,
I mean, you got to lay into them.
I'd find a way to do it gracefully, but I want that championship. Like
Okay.
I want that champ, but I would do it with respect. I guess you
Okay.
could say. Is that fair?
I don't know if it's possible, but we'll take it. Alrighty. So I think Coach Simons came on one time. He said that you, of anyone in the program, are the biggest conspiracy theorist there. Is there a conspiracy theory that you would pound the table and say, "Man, this is real"? You
Whew.
might get in trouble here, so I don't know if you can give the answer.
I don't know. I would need more time to think about that because it's an interesting question, and I just don't have a lot of time to think about conspiracy theories a whole lot or do research on them a whole lot. But I guess you could say I'm slow to trust,
Okay,
and maybe
skeptical.
that makes it hard for me to believe everything people say or the media says or what you see online and stuff. But I don't have a lot of time to really, and it's probably a good thing I don't have a lot of time to dive into some of those rabbit holes that could probably make you waste a couple hours. But just in general, slower to trust when it's people I don't know. So
Sure.
yeah, I suppose it could make me a little bit. I don't know if I'd say I'm a full blown conspiracy theorist, but probably have some tendencies. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's say you're in big legal trouble. I don't know what for. You would know. But you're in big legal trouble. You need someone within the program to represent you in court, and this is also going to be televised. All eyes are going to be on it. Who are you choosing to represent you?
Well, to do, because of his connections and his attention to detail, I'd want, certainly David Egelhoff to be like I don't know the technical term here, but he would be, how like in Suits, you had like Harvey had
Uh huh.
Mike, like he could be the Mike, and
Okay.
then but I would need maybe Dave Dickerson,
Okay.
or even Devin Royal to like lead because they can really talk and they can
Yeah.
really sell. They got good passion but probably Dave more than Devin just because he's younger. So Dave and Dave combination, I think,
Okay.
to represent me if I ever needed it.
The law offices of Dave and Dave to bail out Coach
That's right.
Diebler if needed. Alrighty, last question here. You're in an escape room. You're in an escape room with one other person in the program. You got to get out, and if you don't get out, you're locked in there with that person for the rest of your life. Who are you choosing? Because you need the strategy, but you also need I got to live with this guy potentially.
You got to find someone who can help you get out or someone you could stand to be stuck in
Like
there with.
if you don't win past this escape room test, you are living in that room with them forever.
For a coach, it'd probably be Coach Simons.
Okay,
For a player, I'm gonna do two answers. Can I do two answers?
sure. I
For
don't
a
make the rules
player,
here.
um, that's tough. Yeah, that's player's hard. It would
You
be
don't
it would
have to
be
pick a player. I won't make you.
yeah, but it's kind of fun to pick a player. I feel like too.
That's fine. I'm
Maybe
good with
maybe
it.
mm, maybe Colin White or um, or Bruce.
Okay.
One of
I
those two.
I was hoping the captain would be in there. It would have to make sense, I suppose. So that's good. All righty, coach. Last question. We'll get you out of here. Appreciate you being on today. What's your message to Buckeye Nation for 2025?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing for us, listen, I'm really excited about this group. We've had an unbelievable offseason, and I would tell everybody you should be excited too. There's a lot happening in our program right now. And thanks to Ross's leadership, we've invested into the Schott. We're going to take a step forward from an atmosphere and fan experience standpoint. I think people are going to really enjoy watching this team compete with great toughness and togetherness, but also play with pace. And that experience that we have will serve us well this season. We certainly got a tough schedule, and I would say this: we need you. Like we need your help making this arena a really tough place to play. We're going to do our part, but we need help. And I think if we come together and we do it, this has a chance to be something really special this year. So one thing I can guarantee is our guys are working extremely hard every single day. From like down to a man in this program, everybody is. And Buckeye Nation, if they got to see us operate on a daily basis, they'd be proud of that. Now it's time to go out there and give our all to get those results we all want. But we need everybody to play their part. And I'm excited for the season to come. Can't wait to see people fill up the Schott.
Head coach Jake Diebler, thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Best of luck in 2025 and beyond.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.